My mentor uses this metaphor. White Christians often see their theology and central questions like a Christmas tree that is a complete structure of central importance and of sound theology on which marginalized people's identities, including people of color's theologies, are ornamental or decorative.
To hear that? Again, I reject. No argument has been presented. There are so many unfounded assumptions in this young lady's speech that it's what makes it very difficult to communicate. As if Black marginalized people's theologies. What is that? You don't get to have a theology, and I don't either. God gets to determine theology, not me. There ain't no white theology, Black theology, or any of the rest of this stuff. So you're in an echo chamber. Have you ever taken this outside the echo chamber to really see if it works? Or is this only just something where everyone who's already buying this stuff just talks to each other back and forth, and just amplifies it? I mean, that analogy, I don't know who your mentor is, but you need a different mentor, whoever it is, because that's just, where does any of this come from? It certainly doesn't come from Scripture.
However, that is not the case. For me, theology is a lot more like food. Each people group takes ingredients and makes something of them that reflects who they are as people that nourishes the body and serves to tell the stories and experiences of our people.
Now, I wish the sound didn't keep breaking up because there's some important words that are getting lost there. But I think she said it's like food, and we all get to, contribute our own ingredients to nourish the body. Well, if that's the case, then why didn't Paul utilize that? He said that God places the Spirit, as he wills, through the gifting, but places people in the body to serve as he wishes. It has nothing to do with their ethnicity. Nothing. You're introducing something that, if you're right, Paul missed it. And Scripture is not sufficient. Because you're adding something in. You need to add something in. But that's not the case. You don't get your own ingredients based upon your ethnicity or anything else. You don't get to do that. This is simply, again, it's in a Christian context, using Christian terms, without deriving the substance and meaning of the words from Christian theology. It's coming from other sources. This is what we are warning about. This is the danger that we are talking about. And here's an example that it happens, and it's getting very popular.
White supremacy in theology functions like a person who comes into another culture, tries their food, and because they don't like it or agree with it and didn't make it, claims that it is not food at all, while trying to replace other people groups' food with their own in the name of true health.
They see how everybody, white, then now it's called white supremacy. So evidently the idea is that your group gets to determine your theology for your group that might be different from other groups. So there is no one divine truth. Does this mean some groups get to believe in the Trinity and other people don't get to believe in the Trinity? And it's true for some people and not true for other groups? How else does this work? I mean, is it white supremacy theology that if you encounter false teaching that you seek to bring correction and refutation, and that you're somehow saying that's not food? Because that's not food. Unitarianism is not, it will not feed the soul. Unitarianism kills anything it touches. Is that white supremacy theology? You see what happens when you allow these lenses to be just glued in place, that just you see everything as race? Everything's white and black? Everything's the oppressed and oppressor? It twists everything. You're just left non-functional. It's dangerous. There's no basis for it.
The reality is that all experience in theology is contextual, and it contributes something to the greater experience of understanding God.
All theology is contextual. All theology is contextual. Now, what does that mean? If that's simply, if that's just the tautology, that every person that encounters God's revelation has a context in which they encounter that revelation, that's a tautology. No one's questioning that. The question is the revelation itself sufficiently clear to allow us to know the truth and hence to correct our own context and the lenses that we might use to try to distort that? Liberal theology, leftist theology, does not have a high enough view of Scripture to allow that to happen. This movement fundamentally will result in a degradation of the view of Scripture amongst those people that accept it. And that includes every church that today is getting woke. You're turning onto a path that, not immediately, but will fundamentally over time lead you to a position of denying the perspicuity and consistency of Scripture, because its parameters have been forged within a different worldview, because they're not coming from Scripture itself.
The problem is that white theology inherently sees itself and places itself and its concerns at the center of religious life.
White theology puts itself at the center of it. If you believe that God has revealed the Trinity, that by definition demands to be central in everything else. Is that white theology? See, you can use these terms, but since there's no meaningful definition of it, then you can get away with logical murder in making this kind of statement. It sounds like you're saying something. You're not saying anything at all. There's no substance to it. What is white theology? How do you define it? I mean, when Augustine wrote on the Trinity, Augustine wasn't white. But is that white theology? Who knows? Who knows?
White theology, disguised as simply and overarchingly Christian theology, centers itself as the only true theology in the face of marginalized people's lived experiences.
In the face of marginalized people's lived experiences. Do you see the direction here? Lived experiences are now the source of Christian theology, not divine revelation. It doesn't come down from the top. It's now in the face of the lived experience. What is that? What about my lived experience? What about the lived experience of white people? I don't view my lived experience as determinative of Christian theology, and I hope you don't think otherwise, but it sounds like you do. And that's dangerous, incredibly dangerous. Can we even imagine, as long as these assumptions go unchallenged, can there be any unification, any harmony, any peace? No. By definition, there cannot be. It can only divide. It cannot unify. It does not have the power to, because there's no one Christian truth.
All while calling their work contextual. So if you don't have any sense of what other consciously contextualized theologies there are, please look up Black theology, liberation theology, womanist theology, feminist theology, Mujerista theology. There's a ton out there and it'll change your life, I promise.
Now, let's just stop right there. So you've got liberation theology, Black theology, we know Cone, oneness theology. Now you get an idea where this is coming from. This is the end of Christian theology. That's a fundamental denial of, well, everything.